Far below the surface of the ocean, where sunlight disappears and pressure crushes anything fragile enough to enter, there exists a world that does not feel like Earth at all, a place where evolution has taken a path so strange that even the most experienced scientists struggle to explain it. And in this endless darkness, something moves slowly, almost invisibly, as if it doesn't belong to time itself. A creature so bizarre that at first glance it feels like a mistake of nature, or perhaps something that was never meant to be seen. And yet it is real, silently drifting through the deep, watching, waiting, adapting in ways that challenge everything we think we know about life. This is the world of the Goblin Shark, a creature that looks less like a fish and more like something pulled from a nightmare. But the deeper we go, the more unsettling the truth becomes, because nothing about this animal is normal, and everything about it raises questions we still cannot answer. As we descend into the ocean's depths, the first thing that changes is the light, or more accurately, the lack of it, because beyond a certain point, sunlight simply cannot reach, and the ocean becomes a vast, cold void where visibility drops to almost nothing. Temperatures hover near freezing and pressure increases to levels that would crush a human instantly. And yet, life exists here, not just surviving, but thriving in ways that seem impossible. And the Goblin Shark is one of the most extreme examples of this, living hundreds, sometimes thousands of meters below the surface, in an environment so hostile that it forces evolution to take unusual paths. Here, speed is useless, aggression is inefficient, and survival depends on something far stranger: patience, sensitivity, and the ability to detect life in complete darkness, which brings us to one of the Goblin Shark's most unusual features: its long, flattened snout, a structure that looks almost comical at first but is actually one of the most advanced sensory tools in the deep sea, packed with electroreceptors that allow the shark to detect the faint electrical signals produced by other animals, even when they are hidden in the darkness or buried beneath the ocean floor. And this raises a fascinating question: how does evolution create such precision in an environment where visibility is nearly zero? And more importantly, what other senses might exist down here that we have yet to discover? But the Goblin Shark's strangeness doesn't stop there, because its body itself seems unfinished, almost fragile, with soft, flabby skin and a pinkish color that comes from blood vessels visible beneath its surface. Unlike the sleek, powerful sharks we are familiar with, this creature appears almost delicate, as if it shouldn't survive in such an extreme environment. And yet this very softness may be the key to its survival. Because in the deep sea, conserving energy is everything. Movement is slow, deliberate, and calculated, and every action must be efficient, which leads us to one of the most shocking adaptations ever recorded in the animal kingdom: the Goblin Shark's feeding mechanism, a system so bizarre that it almost feels mechanical rather than biological. Because when this shark detects prey, it doesn't chase it in the traditional sense. Instead, it launches its entire jaw forward at incredible speed, extending it outward like a projectile, grabbing its target in a fraction of a second before pulling it back into its mouth. A motion so fast and unexpected that it has been compared to a spring-loaded trap. And even today, scientists are still trying to fully understand the mechanics behind it, how such a structure evolved, how it is controlled, and whether there are limits to its speed and force. As we move deeper into this story, the environment becomes even more extreme. Because the deep sea is not just dark and cold, it is also incredibly sparse. Food is rare, encounters are unpredictable, and survival often depends on making the most of every opportunity, which may explain why the Goblin Shark has developed such an aggressive and efficient feeding strategy. But this also raises another mystery: how often do these sharks actually eat? And how do they sustain themselves in a place where prey can be so scarce? Some scientists believe that deep-sea creatures like the Goblin Shark may go days, weeks, or even longer without food, relying on slow metabolisms and energy conservation to survive. But the truth is, we simply don't know enough, because observing these animals in their natural habitat is incredibly difficult, and most of what we understand comes from rare encounters and captured specimens, each one offering only a small glimpse into a much larger, hidden world. And then there is the question of evolution itself, because the goblin shark is often referred to as a living fossil, a species that has remained relatively unchanged for millions of years, which suggests that its design is already perfectly suited to its environment. But this idea challenges one of our fundamental assumptions about evolution, that species are constantly changing and adapting, because in this case, it seems that stability, not change, is the key to survival, which leads to a deeper question. Are there other creatures in the deep sea that have reached a similar state? Forms of life that have found a perfect balance with their environment and therefore have no need to evolve further? And if so, what does that tell us about the limits of evolution itself? The deeper we explore, the more we begin to realize that the goblin shark is not an exception, but part of a much larger pattern. A world where biology takes on forms that feel almost alien, where creatures glow in the dark, generate their own light, and use senses we can barely comprehend. And yet, despite all our technology, all our research, and all our curiosity,